Like many young people of my generation, I grew up with the impossible dream. My mother, a great lover of the American musical, had the bright yellow original cast recording of Man of La Mancha in her collection. As a budding actress, is it not surprising that I listened to it often, learning every song by heart? Though I grew up with the music and had seen both the movie and the play, I admit I knew only a little about Man of La Mancha until I was given a part in a production at Bainbridge Island Performing Arts a decade ago when I lived there. During that time, I spent many months immersed in this play, and when I heard that your theme was impossible dreams, it brought it all back to me. So this morning I bring to you my imperfect, highly personal perspective on this topic. And I'm glad to do so in a Sunday service, because I think the heart of Man of La Mancha is powerfully religious. Let me give you just a brief background of its inception. In the late 1950s, writer Dale Wasserman conceived a small show for television that he called I, Don Quixote. It was not yet a musical, but already contained the interesting plot feature that makes this tale more than just a retelling of the famous Don Quixote stories of Miguel de Cervantes. For Dale Wasserman connected to one small but powerfully important point. Don Quixote and his creator Cervantes were actors. In an article Wasserman wrote in 1999, he brings forward this quote from Don Quixote, who, when asked by his neighbor if he is not merely a respectable gentleman by the name of Alonso Quijana, responds with, "I know who I am and who I may be if I choose." Wasserman goes on in his article to write, "Examine that statement. I know who I am and who I may be if I choose. That is not the statement of a madman, nor of one with vacant rooms in his head. To one whose profession is theater, it is instantly recognizable as the statement of an actor perfectly aware of the role he is playing and quite properly annoyed by any who question his assumed identity." From this point forward, I felt quite comfortable with Don Quixote. I understood him, an actor. That's what he was, first and last, writing his own play, always holding center stage. "In my childhood," he tells Sancho, "I loved plays and have always been an admirer of the drama." And he also says, "Plays are the semblance of realities and deserve to be loved, because they set before our eyes looking glasses that reflect human life. Nothing tells us better what we are or ought to be." Dale Wasserman took this obscure quote from Cervantes and saw the potential to create a modern piece of theater that used very old stories. And remember, Cervantes wrote in the late 16th century. These stories help us see the world through the lens of two different but equally interesting characters, Miguel de Cervantes and his literary creation, Don Quixote. Most people who do not know the play well assume it is about Don Quixote, but it isn't, at least not really. It's about a character based on Miguel de Cervantes, who, if we are to believe Dale Wasserman, was a playwright and poet, actor, and tax collector. But more, it is a play about the human desire to find hope in the midst of hopelessness and to dream the impossible dream. These sentiments are incredibly relevant today, aren't they? Let's explore a bit more. Wasserman's play takes us inside a 16th century prison, where Cervantes is thrown awaiting trial by the infamous Spanish Inquisition. His fellow prisoners determined to put him on trial as well, and Cervantes offers up his tale of Don Quixote in his defense. Using the prisoners as actors and the common room of the dungeon as his stage, he takes us on a journey of the imagination into the mind and heart of a man who determines that the world in all its ugliness and horror needs someone who believes in the illusions of dreams. And as he does so, he creates a world where illusion and reality collide. It is this collision of the world as it is and the world as it might be that is, in my view, the spiritual heart of Man of La Mancha. For though what most of us remember about the play is the uplifting song about impossible dreams, what stands out for me are the harsher moments where illusion cannot fully penetrate. The difference between illusion and reality is felt from the very first moment of the show. And for the purposes of this sermon, I'm going to take myself back into the cast and share this with you as if I were once again on that stage. Cervantes is thrown into prison, and as he walks down the ramp into the dungeon below, we see the dregs of humanity gathered. All the characters are dirty, our clothes ripped. Many are barefoot, and some show, through clever makeup, bruises from previous fights. Clearly, some of the characters are mentally challenged, others brutal and angry. We leap onto Cervantes and his manservant as soon as the guards leave, ready to take everything of value from him. Into this dark moment, Cervantes proposes a diversion. He will act out a charade, an entertainment, to explain himself to us. He begins with these words: "I shall impersonate a man. Come, enter into my imagination and see him. His name, Alonso Quijana, a country squire, no longer young. Bony, hollow-faced, eyes that burn with the fire of inner vision. Being retired, he has much time for books. He studies them from morn to night, and all he reads oppresses him, fills him with indignation at man's murderous ways toward man. And he conceives the strangest project ever imagined, to become a knight-errant and sally forth into the world to right all wrongs. No longer shall he be plain Alonso Quijana, but a dauntless knight known as Don Quixote de la Mancha." Well, we in the prison soon take on various roles, as together we tell the tale of this mad knight who sees the world not as it is, but as he wishes it would be. But the story does not play out in one great dramatic gesture. Rather, we keep returning again and again to the prison. It is as if the playwright wants to remind us that we are living in both worlds at the same time, the world of Don Quixote and his beautiful illusion, and the world of suffering, that is the prison and its inhabitants. This dual reality becomes very clear when out of the crowd Cervantes picks a young woman to become the character of Aldonza. Aldonza is a prostitute, working at an inn as a kitchen scullion while plying her less noble trade with the many men who pass through. She is bitter, for she knows the worst traits of those with whom she interacts. In her first song, she sings of this, telling the group of mule drivers that, "I do not like you or your brother. I do not like the life I lead. But I am me. I am Aldonza. And what I give, I choose to give." It is to this bitter and angry young woman that Don Quixote turns, choosing not to see her as she is, but as she might be. He calls her his Dulcinea, and imagines her a beautiful lady, one that he can love pure and chaste from afar. She is astonished at this, but becomes intrigued. In one small moment in the play, our director decided to have Don Quixote take from Aldonza, his Dulcinea, the tray she is carrying to the kitchen. This gentle act of kindness takes her aback. She doesn't know what to do with a man who treats her with care and concern. Meanwhile, the family members of Alonso Quijana wonder how they can stop him from his madness. His niece's fiancé, Dr. Carrasco, a man of science who is the play's materialist, determines that he must do all he can to bring Don Quixote to his senses. Dragging the local priest, known as the Padre, with him, he goes in pursuit of the madman, sure that he can use logic to bring him home. When they meet up with Don Quixote, he is glad to see them, but unwilling to drop his illusion, even for his friends. The doctor runs off to think of a way to force him to give up his illusion, while Don Quixote's friend the padre musically reflects quite a different perspective. This song is called To Each His Dulcinea. To each his Dulcinea, that he alone can name, to each a secret hiding place, where he can find the haunting face to light his secret flame. For with his Dulcinea beside him so to stand, a man can do quite anything, outfly the bird upon the wing, hold moonlight in his hand. Yet if you build your life on dreams, it's prudent to recall a man with moonlight in his hands has nothing there at all. There is no Dulcinea, she's made of flame and air, and yet how lovely life would seem if everyone could weave a dream to keep them from despair. To each his Dulcinea, though she's not but flame and air. Even as a child listening to the album of this musical, though I loved the beauty and pageantry of The Impossible Dream, it was to this song, To Each His Dulcinea, I turned more often. When I was rehearsing the play, I heard talk among the cast of the oddness of this song. Some felt it was only put in the show to give the original actor, who was actually an opera singer, a beautiful melody to sing. Others felt it broke up the flow of the drama, made no great sense, was just a pretty song without meaning. But as I listened to it again and again, particularly when we did a run-through or a performance 7 nights in a row, it became clearer to me why this song is in the musical. For in this poignant hymn, halfway through the play, we hear expressed the difficult issue the playwright juggles throughout Man of La Mancha. How do we balance the harsh reality of what is while dreaming of what may be? How do we carry in our hearts the paradox of these words? For with his Dulcinea beside him so to stand, a man can do quite anything, outfly the bird upon the wing, hold moonlight in his hand. Yet if you build your life on dreams, it's prudent to recall that a man with moonlight in his hands holds nothing there at all. It is this dilemma that holds the religious challenge of this play. For in Man of La Mancha, we are forced to see the beauty and the shadow side of both dreams and reality. And only when we can know and love them both can we see the true heart of this remarkable drama. Let's return to the play for a moment. Not long after Don Quixote sings The Impossible Dream, he with his beloved Dulcinea and his manservant Sancho are beset upon by mule drivers, and despite the odds, actually win the battle. It is a great moment, for we clearly see good triumphing over evil. At the end of it, the innkeeper runs in. Seeing the beaten down men, he says, "Oh, what a terrible thing!" In response, Aldonza, feeling like she has truly become Dulcinea, responds, "What a glorious thing!" For perhaps the first time in her life, she is in control of her fate, able to stand strong towards those who usually torment her. If Man of La Mancha was a different play, we would move quickly to a wonderful celebration of the power of good to conquer evil, and the story would end on a high note. But Man of La Mancha is not that play. For almost immediately the naive Don Quixote suggests that he must tend to the wounds of his enemies. Aldonza, blinded by the powerful joy she is feeling in the moment as Dulcinea, sends him and Sancho away, ready to minister to the mule drivers who lie fallen all around her. But they do not take to such ministering. Instead, they rise up against Aldonza, brutally raping her. Each night when our cast participated in this very difficult scene, I waited backstage with my breath held. Always when the scene ended, there was dead silence in the audience. The audience couldn't quite believe what they'd seen. And when, a few moments later, the sweet-hearted Don Quixote says to Sancho, "How I envy my enemies, to think they know the healing touch of my lady Dulcinea. Let this be proof to you, Sancho, nobility triumphs, virtue always prevails." My heart breaks. For here is the shadow side of such impossible dreaming. Don Quixote does not, perhaps cannot, realize that his great quest has called down upon his lady-love incredible, horrible violence. He sees only the good, blinding himself intentionally to all that is painful about human existence. Rather than recognizing the great risk to which he has put this young woman he hardly knows into, he leaves her to be protected by nothing but his dreams. And they fail her terribly. Ultimately, she lashes out at him. The broken and beaten Aldonza sings her anger and despair to devastating effect. "Can't you see what your gentle insanities do to me? Rob me of anger and give me despair. Blows and abuse I can take and give back again. Tenderness I cannot bear. So don't torture me now with your sweet Dulcineas no more. I am no one, I am nothing, I'm only Aldonza, the whore." In the next scene, Don Quixote is finally unmasked by the Knight of the Mirrors, forced to see himself no longer as a knight-errant, but simply an old fool. Then, when we return to the prison, Cervantes says the story is complete, that the tale has ended. Now, Dale Wasserman could have decided to end the play here as well. In the mid-20th century, many writers wrote from a place of despair. Remember, the devastations of World War II and the Holocaust were a mere decade or two in the past. Humankind's worst traits were laid bare in the gas chambers and the atom bomb. It would not be unlike a modern playwright to send us home with the message that all good intentions, all impossible dreams, end up in pieces on the floor. But Man of La Mancha has a much deeper message. To understand it, let me tell you briefly how the story concludes. In the prison, the charade complete, the prisoners are so unhappy with its bleak conclusion that they ready themselves to find Cervantes guilty. But Cervantes asks for a few more minutes to, as he puts it, improvise before they send him to the Inquisition. So we return to the home of the old squire, no longer Don Quixote, who is dying, surrounded by his family. Into this sad scene comes Sancho, ready to cheer up his old friend with a little gossip, a little chat. Next comes Aldonza, who forces her way into the scene despite the fine people nearly slamming the door on the kitchen slut. She begs the dying man to remember who he once was, to remember who he thought she was. He asks her if it's important, and she responds with these words: "Everything, my whole life. You spoke to me and everything was different. You looked at me and called me by another name." And then into the bleakness, she sings to herself as much as to him. "Dulcinea, Dulcinea, won't you please bring back the dream of Dulcinea, won't you bring me back the bright and shining glory of Dulcinea, Dulcinea. And here we see, finally, what this play aims to teach us about life in all its despair and hope. For despite her pain and suffering, despite her anger at Don Quixote's foolish ways, her encounters with him changed her. Aldonza became Dulcinea. So too can our lives be transformed when we are willing to see the world both as it is and as it might be. We must never fear to look at life in the face. Yes, our world is a hurting place. People like the characters in Man of La Mancha are imprisoned, battered, raped, and robbed. Our inhumanity shines forth in too many ways to count, whether on a large scale, such as the terrible events of 9/11 20 years ago, or on a small scale in the many ways we injure and harm each other each day. And life is simply difficult. Bad things do happen to good people. The pandemic and all the upheaval of the last 18 months have made that abundantly clear. Humans suffer and cause suffering, this is true. But if we let it be the only truth, we miss another, far more important one. And that is the truth that we can always be more than we are. That people do indeed rise up to bring about justice. That humans can learn to be friends even with those they thought they should despise. That children can learn to be brave in the midst of change and challenge. That even someone who has been hurt on the deepest possible level can find healing and hope and become the person they are truly meant to be. For it is here that our religious perspective is felt most strongly in this powerful play. As faithful people, we are challenged to live fully in this world, not because we will be saved in the next, but because this world is worthy of our love and compassion. As faithful people, we offer our gifts to the world even though we know that we will do so imperfectly and that we will often fail. As faithful people, we can believe in the impossible dream, even as we work hard in the trenches of life to help it come true. What is that impossible dream? We all know what it is. A world at peace, humans living side by side in love and justice, a planet where climate change is averted because we know how to live in harmony with nature. It is the impossible dream set forth in our first hymn, reminding us to wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. What Man of La Mancha teaches us is that even though the dreams of a perfect world are indeed impossible, they are still worth dreaming, still worth striving for. For even though it's important to see the world as it is just as important to see the world as it might be, and to strive to make it so. That is a religious message worth hearing and living. At the very end of the play, the prisoners have seen Don Quixote die in the flesh, but live on in the hearts of those who believe in him. They have also seen their fellow prisoner, Miguel de Cervantes, struggle to tell his tale in the face of imminent torture at the hands of the Inquisition. When the guards from the Inquisition come to take him away, Cervantes is handed back his precious manuscript. And as he walks toward his fate, all those who he has touched with his impossible dream of hope sing to him his own song, giving him the courage to face whatever comes next. And at each performance I struggled with my own tears as I felt the power inherent in the message of Man of La Mancha, that impossible dreams can come true if we, as we sang at each performance, live with our hearts striving upwards. In that spirit, I conclude with the words to The Impossible Dream, as sung by the whole cast at the end of the show. This will be followed by a recording of your choir singing The Impossible Dream as Don Quixote sings it. So here we are, dreaming the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to run where the brave dare not go, though the goal be forever too far, to try, though you're way-worn and weary, to reach the unreachable star. To reach the unreachable star, though you know it's impossibly high, to live with your heart striving upward to a far, unattainable sky. Amen, and blessed be.